Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. To no one's surprise, Savannah Marshall has been labeled a champion in recess as a result of a reported injury that will bench her from the sport of boxing for what remains of this year, with a mandatory challenger in the queue.
Jadeja Green.
World Boxing Council has chosen to settle affairs. Former WBC super middleweight champion Franchon Cruz was scheduled to make a mandatory defense against mandatory challenger Jadeja Green earlier this year. The WBC approved Franchon to face Savannah Marshall with the condition that the winner would have to make a mandated defense immediately afterwards. Savannah Marshall defeated Franchon, but unfortunately sustained an injury which will keep her outside of the ring at least until April of next year. The World Boxing Council's Board of Governors has declared to place Savannah Marshall as a champion in recess and will order a fight for the vacant super middleweight world title between Green and an opponent to be designated by the WBC Women's Championships Committee. We wish a prompt and successful recovery to Savannah.
The next highest ranked contender behind Jadeja just so happens to be Franchon, which goes back to what I told you before. I wouldn't be surprised to see Green versus Cruz Dezern ordered.
Initially, that's who Jadeja was after anyway, up until Franchon lost the belts, lost them to Savannah Marshall.
And if you're Franchon, and you want an opportunity to be a champion again, an opportunity to make some money as well, this is your shot. This is your opportunity. Jadeja Green's not out there in the cold by herself.
She is promoted by Jake Paul. She is promoted by Most Valuable Promotions. So they can make the fight happen. They can pay Franchon Cruz to participate. I guess the question is, does she really want to? Does she want to fight Jadeja? Because Jadeja is dangerous.
It's hard.
In the event that she doesn't, ranked right behind her is Sweden's own Aline Cedar-Ruz, but Jadeja's already been there and done that with Aline Cedar-Ruz. I see no point in a rematch. Ranked right behind Aline is former unified middleweight champion Christina Hammer.
She retired?
She might as well be. Christina last saw action in May of last year against the pedestrian-level opponent in Luisa Davidova. She hasn't boxed since then, and I don't know that she has any intention to.
It's been over a year since she last fought.
Ranked right behind Christina is Alicia Napoleon, who's been out even longer than Christina has. Alicia Napoleon, the former WBA super middleweight champion, has not boxed in the last 3 years. She has not boxed since January of 2020 when she lost to Aline Cedar-Ruz.
Since then, she's had a kid, and she's 37 now. For me and my money, it seems like her career is over.
And I don't say that with any malice. You know, she was a great fighter when she was fighting, and she's fucking hot, but, I mean, I don't think she's out for a title here today.
I don't think.
You've also got the young up-and-comer from Mexico, Citali Ortiz. You know, maybe Jadeja can fight her. Or Angelica Flores, also of Mexico.
Though Angelica already lost to Jadeja in January of last year.
One unbeaten up-and-comer that I've had my eye on for some years now is America's own Raquel Miller, who I heard may be fighting very soon. Raquel's getting up there in age. She's close to 40 if she isn't there already. And she hasn't quite made a splash in the sport in spite of her decorated amateur background. This feels like this could be her last shot, her last opportunity to really do something in the sport. But Jadeja is a very dangerous fighter.
She is.
Previous failed attempts to make a fight between Shields and Raquel Miller on the premise that Raquel didn't like the money. So what dollar amount would it take to make a fight between Raquel and Jadeja?
That's the question.
Of all the names listed, Franchon Cruz is the next highest ranked contender. She feels like the front runner to me because I'm sure Franchon would like the chance to win a belt back.
At least one.
Savannah Marshall is still in possession of the other three, along with the Ring Magazine title.
No, I don't think Savannah's done with boxing. I just think she's going to be out for a while.
This, at minimum, gives Jadeja the chance to build her name up and build the fight with Savannah, build it up a little more.
The silver lining.
If there is one, that would be it, that this gives a Jadeja Green versus Savannah Marshall fight a little bit more time to marinate, a little bit more time to grow. I'm sure Jadeja would have liked that fight sooner rather than later, but these are the circumstances.
At least until Savannah comes back.
Men's super lightweight news. You may have heard yesterday that the WBA has granted Romero, an injury exception, and he must defend his title by March of next year. O'Hara Davies versus Ishmael Barroso has been ordered. I knew It was too good to be true.
Just when you thought they were holding his feet to the fire.
BoxingScene.com has learned that the WBA's medical committee has reviewed and accepted all records submitted by Las Vegas's Romero, who will be permitted to keep his junior welterweight title. The ruling comes with two specific caveats. He must be able to defend by no later than next March 20th, and he will have to face the winner of an approved interim fight between England's O'Hara Davies and Venezuela's Ishmael Barroso. Davies versus Barroso has been formally ordered by the WBA. Boxing Scene has additionally learned it is widely believed that a deal will be reached as Golden Boy Promotions, who signed O'Hara Davies earlier this summer, has teased at a November 18th date.
The WBA, as it were, they're dragging this out, allowing Rolly to hang on to that belt a little longer.
The interim title status appears to be a one-time exception granted by the WBA, who abolished all such belts back in 2021 as part of its ongoing title reduction campaign. Its use is applicable here as it avoids a scenario where Romero, who suffered sufficient proof of injury, is seen fit by the sanctioning body, is stripped of the belt and/or downgraded to champion in recess.
I don't believe he's injured.
I believe Rolly Romero is a limited enough fighter that the powers that be don't think it's safe to put him in there with O'Hara Davies, his mandatory challenger. He barely scraped by Ishmael Barroso, who is many years older than Rolly Romero. Their controversial fight.
Bottom line, I don't think he's injured. How difficult do you think it is to offer a doctor's office a couple thousand to make up an injury for you?
Make something up. Use somebody else's x-rays. Say they're yours. How difficult do you think that is when you have the money?
It's not difficult at all.
This ruling comes nearly 4 months after Romero was first ordered to face Davies in a mandatory title defense. The two sides never came close to reaching a deal or even making even slight progress during the assigned negotiation period, highlighting what I've been telling you, that Rolly doesn't want to fight this guy. They don't want to let him.
They don't trust him.
Trust him to win the fight. A purse bid hearing was scheduled for June 24 before the WBA agreed to delay in light of Romero's filed injury exemption. Romero won the vacant WBA 140-pound title in a controversial 9th-round stoppage of Ishmael Barroso earlier this year in May.
In Vegas.
Rolly was due to previously challenge unbeaten champion Alberto Puello, who was removed from the event when he subsequently tested positive for a banned substance and was so stripped of the WBA title. The way all of this happened,
Highly suspicious to me.
ahead of what was supposed to be the Alberto Puello versus Rolly Romero fight, I wasn't sure that Rolly would make it past that guy. I wasn't sure that Rolly could beat him because Rolly sucks.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that Alberto tests positive for a banned substance that sees him
Stripped of the WBA title so that Rolly can fight an old man.
in what the matchmakers probably thought was a safer fight for Rolly than the Alberto Puello fight.
And even the old guy, even the old man was proving to be too much for Rolly Romero. That controversial stoppage by way of referee Tony Weeks, waving the fight off for punches that didn't even land.
This level of chicanery, in order to not only get Rolly a world title, but allow him to keep it by way of this quote-unquote medical exemption, it hurts the sport.
Rolly's not a good fighter.
He's not a good fighter, he shouldn't be a champion, and everyone knows that. The only reason he's here was because clandestinely, the powers that be saw to it that they get him a title, by hook or by crook, and now they're allowing him to keep it, even if it alienates two of their other contenders.
But who does that really benefit?
Whoever took the bribe, whoever at the WBA is being paid to allow Rolly to keep that belt, to keep that title, because by all rights, if he's injured and he can't compete, he can't fight, you could have just labeled him a champion in recess, given the title to O'Hara Davies, then as soon as Rolly's
Once he's cleared.
medically cleared and ready to fight, he can challenge for the title, challenge for it straight away against O'Hara Davies. But therein lies the dilemma.
What?
He doesn't want to fight O'Hara Davies. His people.
They don't trust him to win.
The appropriate ruling would have been to rule Rolly a champion in recess. But if you do that, the title goes to O'Hara, and then Rolly would have to fight him to get it back.
They don't know if he can fight him and get it back. They don't know if he can beat him.
Been trying to drag this out and delay it. He's still on the hook, you understand. So long as O'Hara Davies beats Ishmael Barroso,
And he might.
Rolly is still on the hook, and he still has to answer to O'Hara Davies. What Rolly would like to do is not fight O'Hara altogether, fight Ryan Garcia on pay-per-view instead. But Ryan has no claim to the WBA title, and Rolly is not at liberty to take a voluntary.
Boxing is a joke.
Sorry to say that sometimes the sport that we all know and love, that has given us so many memorable moments, sometimes it seems less and less like a sport and more like a bad joke.
Rolly's got a title.
That's a joke without a punchline.
Rolly is a joke.
Why would anybody work this hard to put a title in that kid's hands? And why would anybody work this hard so that he can keep it?
Fattening him up for somebody.
I mean, it really doesn't help this division that Rolly Romero has a title he's not defending because he's supposedly injured, if you want to believe that. He had no intention of unifying it with the other champions at the weight. He thinks he's supposed to just hold it hostage while he has his pick of the litter.
Special Rolly privileges.
More like special ed.
Retard.
Doesn't help the division, doesn't help the sport that this is going on, so who does it help?
Whoever took the bribe.
Whatever doctor's office doctored up some documents as medical proof that Rolly is quote-unquote injured.
Paid to do so.
Whoever decided to accept this cockamamie excuse by way of the WBA.
Paid to do so.
But he's not in the clear. He's not getting off scot-free. So long as O'Hara Davies takes care of business with Ishmael, Rolly's still on the hook.
He ain't out of the woods yet.
Finally, in men's super middleweight news, former unified junior middleweight champion Hurd expects Canelo to stop Jermell Charlo, saying he's got nothing for Canelo.
Nada.
I think Jermell ain't got nothing to do with Canelo, Hurd told a group of reporters recently. He's gonna get stopped. I think it's too much of a jump for him. The weight isn't the only thing Hurd believes Charlo will struggle to get acclimated with. At one point, the former unified junior middleweight champion was hopeful that a matchup between himself and Alvarez would come into fruition, although it made all the sense in the world, the two never collided. Just because Alvarez never stepped in the ring with Hurd, it doesn't mean he hasn't watched his career closely. Canelo is one of the hardest punchers at 168. He's stopping people at 175. He's competing at 175. I don't think no 154 Jermell Charlo's got nothing for Canelo.
Widely contrasting takes on this fight from different individuals in the world of boxing. While the former champion feels that Canelo should take care of Jermell Charlo, veteran trainer Freddie Roach feels the opposite.
He says, this version of Canelo will not be able to handle Charlo. I'm picking Charlo by stoppage. Freddie Roach predicted that Charlo will become the first fighter in 64 professional fights to beat Alvarez by way of knockout. Manny Pacquiao's longtime trainer has seen enough deterioration in the 33-year-old Alvarez to believe that the hard-hitting Charlo can stop the Mexican icon, even though Charlo has made a two-division, 14-pound jump in weight for this Showtime pay-per-view main event September 30th at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Canelo has had an outstanding career, Roach told a small group of reporters. And even though I had Gennady Golovkin winning their first two fights, I was impressed with the way Canelo fought him. If Charlo was fighting the version of Canelo before he fought Golovkin, I would favor Canelo, but that's not the case. This version of Canelo will not be able to handle Charlo.
But what about this version of Charlo? Over a year removed from the sport, reportedly coming off an injury, jumping up 2 weight classes.
I love the attitude that Charlo brings into the ring, Roach said. He's mean and defiant, and better yet, he backs that attitude up with his talent. He cannot be intimidated. He has a great chin, and he doesn't get fazed by getting hit. Charlo is downright vicious inside the ring.
Can't be intimidated. Just the other day I saw him saying that he's nervous.
While both men can fight, I think Charlo will have too much firepower for Canelo to handle, especially at a higher weight. Canelo needs to stay away from Charlo's left hook. The question is, can Canelo stay away from Charlo's left hook? I don't think he can, which is why I'm picking Charlo by stoppage. I can't wait for this one.
Like I said, Who people think is going to win this fight all depends on who you ask. Hurd doesn't think Jermell has anything for Canelo, whereas Freddie Roach thinks Canelo doesn't have anything for Jermell.
Is Freddie underestimating Canelo?
If he is, Canelo likes that.
Canelo, who says these kinds of fights motivate me. I like being underestimated. That's what makes me excited for this fight. I always believed that I'm number one my whole career because you need to believe in yourself. I still believe I'm the number one, but I believe there is more than just one fighter alone at the top. There are a few.
My thoughts.
Jermell Charlo needed 2 fights to beat Tony Harrison once, and he needed 2 fights to beat Brian Castano once. That's what he needed. He needed 2 fights for those guys, and he was a more active fighter then than he is now. A more acclimated fighter then to that weight than he is to this one.
The idea that he's got too much firepower for Canelo, I don't buy it.
We always prepare 100% no matter where we are. It's different being here. At the beginning, I couldn't breathe very well, but now I feel great. I found a place that's made me happy and strong, said Alvarez. I feel great. This is really one of the best camps I've ever had. I feel great to be able to train 100% now with my left hand. That's made me more confident. When you train knowing that you're healthy, you'll be more confident in the fight.
It's hard to imagine that a fighter who needed 2 fights to knock out Tony Harrison once and 2 fights to knock out Brian Castano once is all of a sudden going to have all this stopping power 2 divisions north of where those fights took place.
Against one of the best fighters with the best chins in the entire sport of boxing. 60-something fights, Canelo Alvarez has never been knocked down and never been knocked out. And I know that there is a first time for everything there is, but I don't think this is that time. And I don't think Jermell has that kind of stopping power. I like being here in Lake Tahoe because I'm 100% focused. It's just me and my team, and we're focused on the fight. It makes me feel ready for the fight.
High altitude.
Moving his training camp to Truckee, California, the benefits of training at high altitude are stamina benefits.
You get back to sea level, you're a machine.
Addressing Freddie Roach's prediction of Jermell Charlo by way of knockout, we saw Canelo not but 3 fights ago go up there to light heavyweight, fighting a naturally bigger man than Jermell Charlo. And even though he was exhausted, even though he was tired and he lost, he still didn't get knocked out.
Dimitri beat him, but he didn't knock him out, and it's not because Dimitri wasn't throwing punches. He was throwing punches.
You gonna tell me Jermell's gonna knock out Canelo, where a light heavyweight in his prime could not? I always want to make the best fights out there. I'm excited to be in this fight. This is a fight that people have talked about for a while. Now Jermell is going to feel my skills, said Alvarez. He never believed in my skills, but he's gonna find out soon.
Freddie doesn't believe in them either.
Not one for swearing by any one boxing take, any one boxing opinion from any one boxing expert. I just don't think Jermell can pull it off under these circumstances. Though if he were to, it would likely be a points decision, not a knockout.
If he were to win, I don't think he's going to.
Jermell's plan seems centered around fighting on the fly and staying on the balls of his feet, not sitting on his punches, not generating knockout power.
He wants to move and punch.
Does this really seem like the kind of fight that you take on after a year of inactivity? Over a year? And at a new weight?
Yeah, I've still got Canelo.